To celebrate the 100th birthday of the BBC, I speak to Benbrick, the award-winning sound designer for Have You Heard George's podcast. And tonight, on the exact 100th anniversary of the first BBC broadcast, we're going to discuss the art of radio. I wonder what it meant for each of you listening to the radio.
When I was discovering music, it was the Napster era where everything was available for the first time and it felt really exciting. But still, some of my favourite music I've discovered on radio. My favourite band is probably the Beatles, and I first heard them a remix on Zane Lowe's show on Radio 1, and that started a love for that band.
Yo, I'm heading out, about to do some fleshing out. I know my flesh endowed with something to prove. I'm setting out on a trip to heaven's mouth. Yeah, I'm stepping out in the name of love. Who knew the devil could slow dance?
Benbrick, I was thinking, having got a little sense of the ancient history, if you can call it that, of radio, whether podcasting now has brought back some of that anarchy because it's broken the rules of radio formats, hasn't it?
I think it definitely has. I mean, me and George both come from songwriting, and when we came to podcasting, we realised we didn't have to make pieces of art that were only 3 minutes long now. We could make something as long as we want, and it could be genreless, and there was a real excitement to that. We were given a lot of freedom by the BBC to make this, and, you know, our commissioner is very relaxed with letting us just go on our crazy journeys and come up with these weird ideas and, you know, like experimentations in sound.
Well, I want to hear some experimentations in sound. So as you've sort of hinted, you've come from a songwriting music background. I gather you approached George the Poet after seeing him on the Jules Holland show. We've got a clip of your score, Falling Tide, performed by the BBC Concert Orchestra. And we can hear how it was combined with George's spoken word.
So when dancehall started turning gangster, full of hungry young artists, burning ganja, it's no surprise that hip-hop started changing. 'Cause they were cousins, going through the same thing. In all of us, the past survives. You can literally study history through these artists' lives.
Well, if you observe what's going on and try to figure out how people are thinking, I think you can always write something that the people will understand.
Even just a little clip is so rich. Benbrick, how do you work with George together for something like that to emerge?
Well, every episode is so different. We often come up with some musical ideas, and I'll send a folder of, you know, I just actually did it recently for the new series, about 60 or 70 musical ideas, which George will go through. Then we get together in the studio, and he often writes in his car, which is like his spaceship, and then he'll bring up his words to the studio and say them out loud to me, and most of the time I'm like blown away, like, wow, what am I going to do musically to make this interesting? A lot of it is iteration, to create something that feels like we're giving the listener space to, you know, really just sit there and enjoy and take in this information.
I was thinking as well how technology has moved so dramatically since the early days that Tom was describing. And you build this very almost surreal sound world sometimes, like the inside of George's mind with different voices. How do you go about creating that? I mean, it's multi-track and stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a lot of tracks. I mean, most of the season is, for each episode, is about 300 to 500 tracks of audio, different things going on. It's like a scrapbook of sound. If you imagine a piece of poetry or a rap song or a piece of classical music by the BBC Concert Orchestra, they're all identifiable. But when you put them together and you try and make this seamless, cohesive experience, it becomes genreless. So with that, we can have a lot of fun for how we take people through that journey. I remember in one episode, we had this glass being dropped in a scene. And because you can experiment so much with audio, we have it sounding like it's literally coming outside of your headphones. And so many people said they listened to that and turned their head thinking, where's that come from? Thinking it happened in the room they're
Quite
actually
immersive,
in.
Yeah.
110th Street was the borderline between Harlem and Central Park, a quintessential mark where racial tension sparked. The song was a soundtrack to a film of the same name. This was in blaxploitation's heyday. Both the track and the movie.
If we bring it back to where we are now, I began by mentioning we're in an audio boom thanks to podcasting. I wonder to each of you if it matters if radio as a live experience declines as a live experience. Benbrick first.
Well, I think the radio for sure offers companionship in a way that something that isn't live 24/7 can't really do. And we also have the benefit, whether it's a book or whether it's, a podcast or a song, we can pour over every single word in a book or pour over every single lyric in a song before we put something out into the world. So it must be a challenge for you when, you're live, and if someone leaves a space of air not saying anything, you have to fill it in.
No, or we embrace the silence, sometimes that's part of it. As long as I've got someone to talk to, we can make radio.